Welcome to Good Goodbyes, the funeral facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
And me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
are going to discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats, and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So, we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goodbyes. Hello, this is Good Goodbyes, and I have a guest with me this week. Dionne has joined me, and Dionne Smith is a personal brand leadership and life coach, and she has had some loss in recent years and also had to navigate running her own business. So we thought it'd be really good to chat through with our guest for you all how that feels and how that, what Dionne has learned, really, I guess. So welcome, Dionne. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's really nice to have you. So, so people can get to know you a little bit. Where are you based? Where do you live? That sort of thing.
So I am based in southeast London in a lovely town called Catford, which is in the borough of Lewisham. I've had my business for nearly 15 years. It'll be 15 years in May. So yeah, a long time. Oh no, what am I talking about? Oh, do you know, I'm thinking of the it's not 15 years, it's actually 11 years in May. Pushing myself ahead a bit then. Yeah, it feels like 15 years. It's actually 11 years in May. So yeah, I started my business as a brand consultant, working with financial services companies. And then I quickly kind of learned that I was struggling to sell myself, and realized that I needed to kind of pivot and use my branding skills to learn how to brand myself, which is why I stepped into the personal branding space. So I've been doing personal branding probably for about 8 of those 11 years. So yeah, and then obviously over time, as with every business, things change, and I wanted to focus more on helping women step into leadership roles and how to use their personal brand to build their confidence and be good speakers and communicate really well, and become more influential, whether it's within their business career or if they're working for a company. So that's what I help women do now.
Oh, such a worthwhile thing to be involved in. So you had a period of time then, so you're actively running your business and you're a solo business owner like lots of people out there. And then all of a sudden, loss came into your life. So do you want to talk a bit about that and what happened?
Yeah, so I mean, we all experience loss at some point, but I think for me, it kind of all happened in a very short space of time. For people who were very close to me, so my parents, my grandmother, and my sister-in-law. So my dad passed away in June 2019. Do you want me to say how he passed away, or?
No, honestly, just say what you're comfortable to say, really. So your dad passed.
So my dad passed away in June 2019. My grandmother was ill. I was already caring for her because she had dementia, and she went into a care home earlier that year. My mother was also got ill the end of 2019, and they kind of all passed away in succession. So my dad went in 2019. My sister-in-law died suddenly. She was only 57 in 2020, June 2020. My grandmother passed then in October 2020, and then my mother passed away in February 2021. So in the space of like less than 2 years, 4 significant people in my life passed away. Ironically, none of it due to COVID. Because it was over that kind of period of time, but none of them were COVID related. But it was just a lot to take all at once.
It's huge, isn't it? I mean, people deal with loss, and I'm in the funeral industry, and you see a family kind of navigating one loss, and occasionally you do hear about people who've had a succession of losses one after the other, but 4 losses in that time frame, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot to deal with. So how you've probably come away from that, I would imagine, with lots of experience and learning and stuff to share. So that's kind of why I thought it'd be really nice for our listeners to hear, Dionne, like what's happened for you. So following all of that, what do you think a good goodbye looks like from your point of view, having been through all of
that? I think having, my dad again died suddenly. So I think with a sudden death, it's a lot harder to take because you don't get to say all those things that you feel you should have said. So I think that's one lesson that I've learned, is always kind of, remind that person that you love them, that you care about them. Not that I didn't do that, but it's kind of just, having your own kind of peace of mind that you've said all you need to say, because you never know what's going to happen. Tomorrow is promised to no one. But then at the same time, with my mum, she had stage 4 cancer, and I had to care for her throughout that last year of her life. So, we got to do all those things, and as much as it was horrible seeing her suffer, at least she was with us, and we got to do and plan and say the things that we needed to say. So having experienced both, I just kind of feel like, as you get older, or at any time during life, really, because anyone can die at any time, you just need to make sure that you say what you need to say before that person goes away. So I'm always telling my children that I love them, how proud of them I am, and that kind of thing. So they know that. So whatever happens, if I happen to go, or God forbid, if something happens to them, I know that they've had that love from me.
Yeah, because I think that's such a common theme, isn't it? I arrange funerals and I see the outpouring of love, that people want to say all this stuff about the person who's gone. And often they will commonly say, I wish we'd said some of this stuff before. So I think that learning, that way of living, is such a good thing to know, that you can have those tender conversations. So that just feels important, doesn't it? But as you also said, to lose someone suddenly, that opportunity is whisked away. So take your chances as they appear.
Exactly.
Good philosophy.
Yeah.
So during all that time then, so you were doing some caring responsibilities for your family. Were you managing to keep the business going as well? Because of course, many of us work for the passion, but also we need the financial income to live our lives. So how was that for you during that time? How did you manage that?
That was really hard, really hard. I think it was hard more so because I didn't have the energy to put into it. I mean, the money was one thing, but with all of this stuff happening in such a short space of time, you don't know how it's going to affect how you feel. And I'm very much about, showing up with the right energy and being positive. But when you're going through that, it's hard to do that. So that kind of threw me off, threw off my confidence, threw off my ability to work productively. And then because of that, it then impacted the finances as well. So I was relying a lot on my husband to support me during that period. And fortunately, even though it was, a little bit of a struggle, we got through that period together. But it was really difficult to manage my business emotionally and deal with what I was going through emotionally with my family and the loss and the illnesses and stuff like that. So it was really hard.
Yeah. And you see these kind of posts, don't you, on social media, and they're all about fill your own cup before you go and fill anyone else's, and those kind of ideas. And generally speaking, I think that's quite a good philosophy. Most of us need to bring our own energy back to ourselves and replenish so we can give to others. I think yeah, I get that. But sometimes it's a little bit toxically positive along the lines of sometimes something is just going to empty your cup. And it doesn't matter if you go and walk in nature for a whole day, you're still going to find it quite tricky to pull back to that place of having energy, because dealing with death and loss and caring for people is a real endeavor, and it really takes from us. So
Yeah.
I can absolutely see how that was a tricky time for you. Did people say or do anything that was particularly helpful?
That's a really interesting question. um,
Or did you wish that they had? And if what could have been helpful, I guess.
I think with my dad, um, I was obviously my mum stayed with me because they came from Jamaica to London, and it was during the flight that he passed away. So I was caring for her whilst trying to um arrange funerals and the funeral, and because we had one here and we were going to ship his body back to Jamaica to bury him there. So I was trying to arrange all the stuff here, arrange stuff over there, work with my siblings. And, generally speaking, when you're in these kind of situations, it kind of brings out the worst in people because everyone has that sense of loss and sense of unfairness around it. So and then moving on from that, so it wasn't particularly helpful in terms of how that all happened and the challenges around doing stuff here plus doing stuff over there and looking after my mum. And I remember my aunt phoned me one day and decided that she was going to tell me off for not keeping her informed about what was going on, even though she was getting the information from one of my other siblings. So that wasn't a helpful thing at all. And then, with the other ones, it was during COVID. So my mum again was here. We'd gone back to Jamaica. She was out there for a little bit. Then I brought her back here, and I was caring for her here. But then that was right during COVID, so I couldn't get any support anyway, aside from my children and my husband in the house. Nobody could really come around here and help me care for her. So yes and no. People kept saying to me, "Oh, you're so strong. I don't know how you're dealing with this." And I'm thinking, I don't feel that way. That's not how I feel. I feel like I'm gonna fall over any minute, but I can't.
Yeah.
I had to keep putting one foot in front of the other and maintaining as much of a positive mindset as I could for my mum.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just having my husband there and my children there was a good thing, and they would support me as much as they could. But yeah, it was a really odd period because of COVID. So,
and I think
not really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that brought its own isolation, didn't it, and its own different kind of range of issues. And I really hear what you say about people being labelled as like strong women, and it's a nice compliment, isn't it, to think that we have that strength. But equally, the people who look like really strong women, the ones who are getting on and doing and making it happen, are usually, quite rightly as you say, Dion, just putting one foot in front of the other and getting on with it, and just hoping that they can get through it and that there'll be a time when they feel better.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any magical gifts, having been through similar times in my life. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, you know, when I see families also all coming around a death, and you're quite right, it brings out the best and the worst in people. In those moments, I have to be very tactful, because some of me is a funeral celebrant, so I am alongside that journey, but I'm not within it, inside it, as the family are, if that makes sense. And some of me would like to say, can you just all pull in the same direction? Because sometimes you see that happening, you know, you see one lot, or some parts of the family want to do one thing, some parts of the family want to do a different thing. There's somebody in the middle of this trying to get everybody to be happy, and it's really tricky, and they're just reacting often in the moment of the loss, and they're all at sea anyway. But it's this idea of like, just pause for a moment and think, how is this impacting on other people who are feeling the same as me at this moment in time? Like, we've all lost someone.
Yeah.
I kind of recognise what you're saying, actually. It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was just the fact that, you know, I'm trying to take care of my mum. She's devastated at seeing my dad die in front of her eyes in such a public and tragic way. And my priority was her. So to be made to feel like I didn't care, like I wasn't being like I wasn't communicating with others was very painful to hear. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I've kind of moved on from that now.
No, that's good though. But I suppose by telling that story, what we're saying to each other is, we might have all we often we think about how something impacts on us. The example I often give is, you're in a traffic jam, the person in front, you know, the traffic moves forward and the person in the car in front doesn't move forwards, and you've got to be somewhere and you're late, and in your head you're all about yourself in that moment, because you have your own priorities, and all you're thinking is potentially thoughts like, get a move on, why haven't you moved forward with the traffic, what's going on? And you are not thinking about the person in the car in front, because you're thinking about yourself. But potentially they could have either just come from a funeral, be going to a funeral, they could have dropped their coffee all over their lap. They've got their own reasons. They could be crying their eyes out. You don't know what's going on in the car in front, but you're making your judgments about it. And I think that's kind of the way I try and get people to understand that, of course, we have our own stuff going on and what we're thinking about and our own priorities, but other people are the car in front, and you never quite know what's going on in their world. And we make a lot of assumptions. So yeah, trying to just give a little bit more understanding and empathy to one another about what might be happening in someone else's life. But yeah, like you say, you're past that point in time, but obviously something that was a bit of a learning for you. So lots of emotions. How did you manage all of those emotions then?
Did I manage them? That's a really good question. I don't know really. Like I said, I think, you know, you're just putting one foot in front of the other, and trying to get through each day as best you can. Try to find the joy in the small moments as often as you can as well. But I don't know if managing your emotions is something that is easy to do when you're dealing with loss. And everyone deals with it differently. I'm quite a pragmatic person when it comes to death anyway, but you know, having experienced the loss of both of my parents in such a short space of time, and my grandmother and my sister-in-law, and there were other people that also passed away around that time, uncles, aunties, you know, other people. you kind of feel like you're on this roller coaster. One minute you're fine and you're just getting on with things and doing it, and the next minute you just drop.
Mm.
And that's just the way that, you just have to take it day by day and just deal with it as best you can in that moment, I think. But having a support system around you is so important as well, because I don't know, I'd probably be in a nut house if I hadn't had my husband and my children, to be honest. But yeah, you just have to take it day by day,
Yeah.
and not be hard on yourself. I was very hard on myself. I kind of took on a lot of the guilt, the blame, trying to be strong for my mum and all this kind of stuff. I took on a lot, trying to care for my son, who was only like, after my dad died, he had just turned 8, I think. So he was still quite young as well. So, you're trying to deal with other people's emotions as well as your own in that period. So you just have to take it day by day. But I think it wasn't until afterwards, after my mum passed away, after we got through the funeral, that I suddenly kind of felt a weight lifted off of me. And I just been having some therapy as well, grief therapy, which really helped me to kind of just take stock and think about what I wanted to do moving forward, because by that time my son was then going into secondary school. Or was he? No, I think he was, sorry, he was in year 6. So he was starting to take himself to school, so I didn't need to take him. So I kind of all of a sudden had all this freedom. Went from caring for everyone else, dealing with all this grief, and then all of a sudden I didn't have to do that. So I had all this time, and I was like, oh, it felt really weird to have that, to suddenly have that time back to myself. But yeah, it's a day by day thing. I mean, even now, this morning, and not because I knew I was going to be speaking to you today, but the song that we played at my mum's funeral was Brandy Crawford's One Day I'll Fly Away.
Oh, beautiful song. Yeah.
And that song came into my head this morning. And every time I hear it, or every time I think about it, it brings tears to my eyes, because she loved Randy Crawford, and that was one of her favourite songs as well. So, and it's funny because everyone at the funeral, she had a cremation, and I'd never really been to a cremation before. I think I'd been to one before, but they had taken the coffin behind a curtain, whereas this one, after we'd gone through the service and right at the end, they obviously played this song, and the coffin just started to sink. And I was like, oh. And everyone, I think, in that room was in tears, just from the whole emotion of it was so strong. So yeah, every time I hear that song, or every time I think about that song, it makes my eyes well up. So the emotion never leaves you. It's always there. You learn to deal with it, but that loss, that emotion that you feel is always there.
Yeah. I think you said that symbolism of a coffin sinking just is so strong, that symbolism, isn't it, as a form of goodbye. And you've said such important things. I think a lot of people will be listening and thinking, oh gosh, yeah, I really recognise that. The idea of all the emotions all at once. I say to people, it's not like I'm happy or I'm sad. You can be happy and sad. You can have those, and you spoke of glimpses of joy. And I think, yes. And I've had people say to me, oh, I felt terrible. I was really laughing about something yesterday. But, I've just lost my mum. And it's like, yeah, because living carries on. But the grief we take with us, and we make space around it, and we live a different life now. Because it's never, once there's been a death, it's not going away. It's always, it's our adjustment to it, isn't it? So, yeah, that's what I'm kind of hearing you say. So any advice for people then who are trying to navigate all those things that you have been through, Is there anything particular that stuck out for you, Dionne?
I would say if you're running a business, you definitely need to plan or to make sure that you've got an amount of income that's going to allow you to take a step back or
Yeah.
have something passive in place that's going to still give you some income whilst you're going through that period of grief, because you don't know how it's going to affect you. And especially if it's somebody very close to you, you're going to need to take that time and take that space just to deal with it. So get as much support as you can during that period as well. Don't feel like you have to take everything on yourself, because you don't. I'm naturally a just get on with it kind of person. So I've never really been good at asking for help, but I've got better at it over the years. So that's something that I would say, is that if you need help, ask for it. Obviously, as I said, because it was COVID, it was a little bit challenging to get help anyway, but definitely make sure that you've got some kind of support in place if possible. And even if you don't really have any family or friends available for that, there are so many services out there that can help you. So, speak to people, reach out and see if you can get the support that you need, even if it's just having some respite time for yourself. If you're caring for somebody, or just taking that time out, just a weekend away or whatever, just have some time for yourself, because you're going to need it. You need to replenish yourself as well, as we discussed earlier. You do need to replenish yourself, but just don't be hard on yourself, and take your time through it. Take each day as it comes.
Yeah.
Because it is a difficult period, but having some kind of income in place that's going to support you through taking that time out, taking that time away, dealing with your emotions, and getting to that point where you feel ready to move forward again, is really essential.
Yeah. Wise words. That's really helpful. Thank you. So
Okay.
I've got a final question for you. You've obviously been organising funerals around a lot of this sort of thing in recent times. Has it made you think about your own funeral? And in the long distance away, what would you like at your funeral?
I I want to be cremated as well, like my mum was. I've always wanted to be cremated, even before she passed away, to be honest. I don't like the idea of being buried and rotting. That doesn't appeal to me at all. So I'd rather like just cremate me, get it over and done with, and put my ashes somewhere where the sun can hit me.
Yeah, sounds good.
um, Although, in my culture, cremations are a little bit taboo, but I'm not into the whole burial thing. I want people to kind of remember me in a good way, obviously. So, it's just part of my DNA to be a good person, to try and help people as much as possible. And I do often, I say often, have these thoughts about, what would this person say about me? What would that person say about me? Because I've been to enough funerals to kind of hear the words that people say when somebody's gone. So I kind of, that those thoughts always come to me, and also and it also inspires me to be that person who's remembered in a good way. But yeah, just to celebrate, just to kind of celebrate as well. That's pretty much what we all do in West Indian culture, is to celebrate the person who has passed away by through dance, through song, through celebration. So yeah, just to do that, really.
And good food, I'm told.
And good food, yes. Good food. We usually have a thing called a 9 night. I don't know if you've heard of that
No,
before,
tell me
but
about that.
that is kind of, it's 9 days after the death, when they say the body rises to heaven or something along those lines. But they have like a celebration on that day, which is usually before the funeral, and then obviously they have the funeral. Am I too fussed about that? Not particularly. I mean, I don't, if they want to do it, then that's fine, but I'm not fussed about that kind of thing. It's kind of like, just do it's expensive enough as it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, sometimes the 9 night can be just as big, if not bigger than the funeral. So I'd rather they just put all their effort and energy into the funeral and not worry too much about doing something before. But you know, I think I'd probably leave that decision down to them. But you know, I don't want them to spend a lot of money on it. Just keep it simple and just celebrate.
Yeah, sounds excellent. Thank you, Dionne. Thank you very much for joining us and talking so honestly and openly about your experiences. You've been listening to Good Goobyes.
You've been listening to Good Goobyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram, or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.